Hi, my name is Paige Jelinski, and I watched the Surviving the Holocaust full show. I'll be answering questions by Daniela Venunu. In this documentary, Irene Weiss was a Holocaust survivor. The first question is, why do you think Irene couldn't talk about her experience that she endured in the Holocaust for 25 years? Why did she decide to talk about it now to young children and teenagers? Irene said that she had sweaty hands and that she could say who died, but couldn't come to talk about what it was like. It was very hard to talk about an event that happened to you that you can't bring into context for years. I think she was trying to recover and even get a more understanding on the event that she went through. It was hard to shake the thought that she was going there to be killed. She said that it was a horrific time in history, should be passed down from generation to generation. She wants to make sure people know about it, think about it, analyze it, and learn from it. Irene Weiss was from Czechoslovakia, where she was taken from her home. The second question was, describe 12-year-old Irene and her father's experience when they got to the train. How do you think Irene was feeling when she saw her father targeted like this by the Nazis? I said when Irene took the train, she would take off her star because she didn't feel safe on the train or where she was going. She did leave the star in her hometown because she felt safe. On the train with her father, Irene was terrified because her father was getting poked at because people that supported the Nazis were laughing at the idea of throwing him off the train. In this event, Irene was scared because she didn't know what to do and no one was helping defend her father. But what saved her father being thrown off was the train approaching their home. After Irene and her family were told to move out of their house, they had to only bring certain belongings with them, including just a small suitcase. Question 3 was, Irene and her family were forced to leave their home with little to no belongings. If you were forced to leave your home with no time to pack, what 3 valuable items that would you take with you and why? I said I would bring a blanket, jacket, and a stuffed animal. These 3 items provide comfort from home. The blanket might have a smell that I love to provide comfort of family, a jacket to keep me warm and to have that sense of closure and protection. The stuffed animal would give me something to remind me of my home and my family. Also, all of these items I can keep close to me so that when I get scared, I have something to hold on to and relax. Irene and her family boarded a train, and they were at the concentration camp. What are your opinions as to why Irene and her entire family got separated from each other, all going in a different direction? I said, I think that the Nazis didn't want families to be together because they don't know what is going on with the other family members. Also, maybe because if family members were all together, then they might cover for each other. But now they are separated, they have to fend for themselves and for their survival. Irene was living in the concentration camps for months. Question 5 says, describe how Irene lived in the concentration camp, Auschwitz. Include information about the lineup. I said Irene was living in the concentration camp and she was working for them. Then the lineup that Irene had to go to every day was torture. The lineup was to make sure that they didn't make a mistake and also to make sure that everyone was accounted for or they would be put in the gas chamber. They had to wake up at 5 a.m. in 5 lines waiting for the Nazis to count them at 9 or 10 a.m. after they had their breakfast. Irene said that it was pure torture for all the prisoners. Irene was losing hope in the concentration camp. Then her mother's sister came along and gave her hope. Question 6 says, how do you think Irene survived her time in the concentration camp? What do you think were her thoughts and feelings? I said, I think that Irene survived the concentration camp because one of her mother's sisters, because she made her feel safe. Her aunt also maintained her humanity and helped others to maintain theirs. Her aunt was what she needed to survive to keep her humanity strong. I think she was feeling scared because almost her entire family was gone and had no one to turn to. I also think her thoughts were to keep going and power through it with humanity that she had. That is why she survived, and that is what helped her survive the camp as well. Irene was so attached to her older sister because that was the last family member she had, and they almost got killed. Question 7 says, Irene risked her life to be with her sister when she knew they were in danger. What would you have done if you were put in her position? I said, if I was in Irene's position, I would go with my sister as well. I don't want to die alone. I'd rather die with someone I loved by my side, hugging and kissing them and telling them I loved them. Because who knew you were going to see the light of day again with the people you loved so much? After this, Irene took many years before she came out to students to tell them what happened to her in the Holocaust. Question 8 says, Irene was a Holocaust survivor. She lost her entire family and survived. If you had a chance to speak with Irene, what are some questions you would ask her? Why? I would ask Irene these questions. What was the hardest thing to bring back into your perspective of life? Was it hard to trust people in your town after liberation? What was one thing that gave you hope during your time in Germany? I would ask these questions because even after a tragic event, was there still obstacles to overcome after coming into the world free? Also, what kept her going and hopeful, because even though it was a dark life, there is always a light at the end of the dark tunnel. Also, by her telling us this, it might inspire more people to take her hopeful advice and put it to good use in others' futures, including mine. After she was liberated, Irene and her sister came to the U.S. They lived in New York, and Irene went to a New York school. Question 9 says, how do you think Irene felt when she went to an American high school with American students who knew nothing about what she went through? Do you think she wanted to tell the students about her tragic experience? I said, Irene felt like an outcast and that no one would understand what she went through because the American classmates didn't understand the torture and harassment she went through. I believe she wanted to tell her American classmates. However, she might have been nervous to tell because she didn't want to get harassed in school, and she wanted to be a normal human being without being tortured and humiliated. She wanted the American classmates to understand what she went through so that they knew as well. At the end of this documentary, it was very interesting. Question 10 says, after watching this documentary, what are your thoughts? What were you feeling throughout this video? What are your thoughts about teaching people about the Holocaust? Do you still have questions? What did you learn? Etc. I said, my thoughts are to keep learning and teaching about this event because of how important it is to know of how important it was. In this documentary, there was a mixed emotions of shock, surprise, and anger, because it is very hard to hear what people went through and being tortured at the camps and being almost killed. It is hard to imagine and hard to fathom about it. I think that the Holocaust should be studied in every generation because of the importance and what innocent people went through because they believed in something else. I have a question about the trial because the Nazi soldier got 4 years in prison, when in my opinion he should have been sentenced to life because of how many people he killed with the Nazis. I learned that the Holocaust is a tragic event and that everyone should know about it. Think about it, learn and analyze it. I also learned that sometimes when tragic events happen, they are to show and to tell you what needs to change. Lastly, I learned that there were other events and other ways that people got killed that I didn't know, including being separated by families, gender and age, the death march, and having to wake up early and stand there so that maybe you're not the chosen one to go to the gas chambers. All in all, everyone should know the Holocaust and every generation should learn it. because it is really important to understand and have awareness about it. It is an event in history that should never, ever be repeated or forgotten. This documentary was a real eye-opener for me. I learned so much more about the Holocaust, especially through the eyes of Irene Weiss. Thank you so much to listening to my presentation.